Oh, the Baltimore Ravens are back. They dismantle the Miami Dolphins in week number 9. And there seems to be a lot of good things ahead for this Ravens team. We'll break down the game, missing the react, and so much more coming up on this instant reaction post-game edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire. We're here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day. And thank you for making us a part of your routine here when it comes to Baltimore Ravens coverage. We're 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens. So Monday through Friday, we have regularly scheduled content and coverage for you. Plus, during game days, we have so much coverage and content, and this is a part of that here as the Ravens, they beat up on the Miami Dolphins. They win 28-6. Well, certainly a tale of two halves, and we're going to get into all of that and more here tonight. About 11:30, 11:40 as we kick this thing off. So thank you for staying up with me. If you're here live or if you're watching after the fact, thanks for tuning in. Want to say first, today's episode of Locked On Ravens is presented by PrizePicks. And with PrizePicks, you can download the PrizePicks app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Man, that was fun. That was fun. I mean, look, first half, they had us a little bit in the first half. Not going to lie. But I mean, look, I'll tell you something. That Ravens team, they turned on the Jets in the second half, not just with Lamar Jackson, but defensively. We're going to dive into all of that here. I'm really excited to dive into, but I think we have to start with Lamar, don't we? I mean, we have to start with Lamar. I think he was trying to shake some of the rust off in the early portion here, but you look at Lamar's stat line, and man, was he balling out. He ended up putting together a 18 of 23 mark for 204 yards and 4 touchdowns. We were so close to that Jackson 5. If you were watching along with us during the watch-along, we do watch-alongs during every game. I was begging for the Jackson 5. I wanted the Jackson 5, but we know Lamar Jackson likes to play Miami. And look, I think that Lamar, we saw a little bit of every single part of his game, right? I mean, you have him scrambling, making things happen, evading pressure. We saw some deep ball. We saw him running for a little bit. And again, part of that first half to me was him shaking some of the rust off, but he finished his game with a 143.2 passer rating. And I liked what the Ravens did offensively. Yeah, I mean, and defensively in this one, but I liked offensively how even though the Ravens weren't getting much on the ground to start, and we'll have a conversation about the offensive line as the show goes on, because still some things to fix up there. I liked that the Ravens didn't go away from it. I'm glad that Todd Monken still stuck with it. Derrick Henry was able to carry the ball 19 times in this game. A lot of that came late in the game, but it was still situational where, look, I give a lot of credit to Miami's front, right? I give a lot of credit to them. They were fast. They were moving guys off of their spot up front and making it tough for Derrick Henry to run. But Derrick Henry still finished this game with 19 carries for 119 yards. Again, he had multiple huge runs as the game wore on. But part of that was because I think, again, Lamar Jackson, he creates so much stress on defenses. And I think that that's the huge thing too, where, again, and I see people talking about Lamar with the rust, where 4 first downs, I see the comment here from SG, 4 first downs in the first half, 5 first downs in the first drive of the second half. And that was kind of like, all right, you got to do it now, because the Dolphins, they were kind of knocking on the door. They were making some mistakes. They were hanging around a little bit. And it was up to the offense getting that ball back to start the second half to make a key statement and to say, hey, we're not letting you back in this game. We're not giving you the opportunity. You had your opportunities, essentially, is what I was saying. Now it was up to the Ravens at that point to go and just slam the door shut almost, I guess I would say. And while the game wasn't over after that first drive, we saw the defense step up. But a little bit of everybody got involved in this game. This was a game I wanted to see in terms of the pass catching that happened here. Zay Flowers still led the team in targets and receptions, 5 for 64 from Zay. We finally got Isaiah Likely involved a little bit more here. If you're Baltimore, 3 for 60, multiple big-time plays from him. Charlie Kohler, 2 for 23. He had a touchdown. Mark Andrews, 2 for 22, and 2 touchdowns. Mark is back. Rashod Bateman, 2 for 13 and a score. He's back as well, though he did give up on a route when he thought he was penalized. Ended up getting a 15-yard on sportsmanlike penalty. You can't have that happen. That was bad from Bateman, but he still got on the board with a touchdown. So again, the Ravens spreading this football around and spreading the football out, to me, was one of the major keys in this game. Because look, they've won the games. Like, they've won games with Zay Flowers just being the dominant target guy. But I think that this Ravens offense is at their best when Lamar is spreading the football around, keeping their defense on their toes. Because genuinely, when that is happening, you cannot guard everyone on this offense. When things are clicking, you can't guard everyone on this offense. So I don't know. And I see Primetime asking, what does this say about the Falcons? Man, the Falcons, even, and again, they were down Penix, they were down Drake London, but yeah, it felt like that Ravens game against the Bears was more of what the Ravens should look like. That Dolphins game against the Falcons felt like more of a fluke. And I think that's what we saw, especially in the second half of this game. So again, like, it was fine offensively. I thought the Ravens, they put their foot on the gas. They kept it there. Again, long Derrick, and they literally did, because they did not take Lamar or Derrick Henry out of this game until very, very late. I think Lamar stayed in the game, and I think that some of those receivers just came out with a minute or two left to go in the game. So, you know, they looked the part, especially as the rust was shaken off. I see Lady Laura talking about it there. Our QB looks a little apprehensive. You know what? I feel like that's a good word to use. Lady Laura, I like that word. Apprehensive and rusty. He was fine. Good tight end game overall. I really liked what I saw. That whole tight end room just dominated the Dolphins on the defensive side of the ball. That's something that Minka Fitzpatrick should be good at in terms of taking that away, but he did not do that. And I see SG talking about it right here. Defensively, the Ravens defense gave up 35.4 points per game prior to trading for Alohi Gilman. After the trade, 13 points per game. The move that might have just saved their season, or the move that just might have saved our season. So I want to get to the defense in the second part of the show. So SG, I appreciate that stat. Thank you for putting that in there. But I cannot wait to see, hopefully, a run that this Ravens team goes on, because I think offensively, they showed it to me in the second half of this game, where they didn't let themselves get discouraged. And I look at the box score stats here offensively. Again, we're going to go all defense in the second part of the show. But the Ravens, they went 5 of 13 on third down, which isn't like great efficiency, but I think they were 1 of 6 or 2 of 8 on third down, maybe 2 of 6 early in the first half. So that's a much better improvement. They had the big fourth down conversion. But what I liked here was that Baltimore, the efficiency of only having Lamar pass for 188 yards. And I know that, total Lamar, his box score will say 204, but total passing yards also includes sacks. So 188 total passing yards for the team, but it was efficient, where 7.5 yards per pass compared to Miami's 5.8. The Ravens ended up starting the game pretty slowly, rushing the ball, right? But again, as the game wore on and Derrick Henry gets harder and harder to tackle, you work in some Keaton Mitchell at times. That, to me, was the big part of it. But here's where the game was won for the Ravens. Here's where the game was won. 3 for 3 in the red zone for the Ravens. They converted on every opportunity they had. The Dolphins went 0 for 3. 3 for 3 in the red zone compared to 0 for 3. That's going to win the game every single time. The Ravens, they got down into the red area. They converted in the red area. And that, to me, is where this game was won by the offense. Because if you settle for kicks, you leave 4 points on the board each possession. I mean, you take 12 points off, all of a sudden, it's 16-6 is the final. But then, it's a much different ball game there. The Ravens scoring those touchdowns, I think, took the life out of the Miami defense late in this game. And that's exactly the type of statement that you needed to make if you were the Ravens. It's not saying, hey, we're going to let you hang around. It's saying, hey, we're going to go. We're not going to let you have an opportunity to get back in this game. And I see there's a stat here from Dante that says, let's see, Lamar Jackson, most games with 4+ passing touchdowns and 5 or fewer incomplete passes. Lamar Jackson, Peyton Manning, they're tied at 6. Tom Brady and Drew Brees tied at 5. Aaron Rodgers is at 4. 3 of those guys are retired, and one of them is on the verge of retiring. This man, Lamar Jackson, is absolutely unreal. It's absolutely unreal. The Dolphins are a bad football team. All right? The Dolphins are bad. They're terrible. They might be the worst team in the NFL, not named the Titans, in my opinion. But you did what you were supposed to do. All right? You did what you were supposed to do. If you're trying to make this run and contend for a Super Bowl and win your division or whatever it may be, you need to beat up on the bad teams. You need to take care of business, the business you're supposed to take care of. And that's what the Ravens did here. So, yes, are there things to improve on? Absolutely. That offensive line looked bad for the majority of this game in certain spots. All right. They couldn't run to the left side. I saw people talking about how they got to run it, inside versus outside runs. I mean, it's bad. Like, they need to fix their offensive line. It's not good right now, especially on some of these run concepts where they're just not getting push up front. Ronnie Stanley got pushed all the way back into Henry's airspace on a play. We saw Andrew Voorhees on the ground at times, and that wasn't good. Like, the left side runs were not great. They actually, I don't know the exact splits, but it felt like they had more success running to the right side in this game. And, that it's not great right now offensive line wise, but it's better to figure that out after a win than to figure that out after a loss, right? It is what it is. You want to be able to figure that stuff out after a win, because you're feeling good after a win, all right? You're making sure that you can still look and say, hey, we did this even though we have more stuff to improve on. So Henry struggled in this game early, 1,000%. But you now have a mini bye to figure some things out. I personally believe that they should go out there and make a change on the O-line, bring in a Kevin Zeitler. That stuff we can talk about a little bit more in the final part of the show. But man, I'll tell you what, the fact that you're able to go 3-5 here, you have the Vikings coming up next week. You go and face the Jets and the Browns and the Steelers and the Bengals and all these other teams. Like, you have a chance here to go on a real run here and keep this momentum moving forward. But I was really impressed with the second half mindset of the offense, which is go out there, play it a quarter at a time, right? Don't let the first half dictate your second half. And that's exactly what the Ravens did in this one. So coming up in the second part of the show, we'll go all defense because I have a lot of words about this defense. I want to shout them out for so many different things that I thought they did really well in this game, and also still look at some areas they can improve to become even better. Stay tuned. We got a lot coming your way here on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by PrizePicks, and this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup. You can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using PrizePicks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting, and I like picking my favorite players like Lamar Jackson, Nikola Jokic, to see how my predictions play out. The new stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup if you're going for Steph Curry. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL, $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. And this show is brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth between 401ks, savings, and investments. It's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Now, for me, Monarch has helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money goes and how to make it work harder for me. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at Monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's Monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Moving along on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here talking with you. The Ravens dismantle the Dolphins 28-6. They pick up a big victory. They move to 3-5 on the season, and I can smell a run coming up, maybe. I mean, hey, they have the schedule to do it 1 week at a time, and they certainly impressed this week, especially in the second half. So we're here for you 5 days a week on Locked On Ravens. We have you covered Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We will have a Friday episode for you out tomorrow, 6 a.m., talking about this Ravens team, big headlines, big storylines, as well as after the instant reaction show. Pop on over to the Locked On Ravens squad show, which is going to happen right after this. We have so much coverage and content for you Ravens-wise. But I want to talk about this defense. I've been so impressed. And look, Zach Orr, we criticize him a lot here on this show early in the season. Very rightfully so. It's okay to criticize. It's okay to say, hey, this needs to be better. That needs to be better. It's okay to do that. But it's also okay to say, hey, they've been playing really well over the course of the last handful of weeks. And Zach Orr, some of the things we've seen, all that has to do a lot with the turnaround that we've seen from this Ravens defense. Again, the Ravens, Zach Orr said the bye week, they used that to really dial up their pressure, to figure out their blitzes. And a lot of people laughed at that and said, okay, But seriously, they're a much more aggressive football team now using Kyle Hamilton. I mean, he's almost like a passer. He's an outside linebacker at this point. I mean, he is rushing off the edge at will. He is so quick off of that line. Hamilton, and that stat from SG talking about the defense. I mean, look, you're someone that is such a Swiss Army knife and can make a defense better at all three levels. But using him up towards the line and making the defense figure out where he is on any given play is such a luxury to have. And shout out to Alohi Gilman, right? I see SG talking about it as well here. Trading for Alohi Gilman allowed Zio to move Kyle Hamilton around and in the box more. Absolute mastermind stuff from EDC. I mean, look, I think that move was probably a win-win for both sides. I mean, I think Owe is, he's generating some pressures over there in Los Angeles, but the Ravens needed someone who could truly be that guy to say, all right, Kyle, go and move back into the box, go and be a Swiss Army knife. And Alohi Gilman is that guy. And Gilman, I mean, look, the thing that I'm impressed with this Ravens defense is the two areas that we talked about that this team needed to improve on. It was turnovers and it was pass rush. And the Ravens have passed those tests with flying colors through the past couple of weeks. The Ravens, because again, we talked about offensively where this game was won. Defensively, it was turnovers. Dolphins had 3 turnovers in this game, 2 fumbles and 1 interception. Shout out to Malachi Starks, first career interception, getting on the board. And hopefully, honestly, that's a turning point. I'm hoping that can be a turning point for Malachi, who has struggled at points this season, learning the game, being a rookie, and that's okay. But to get that first interception, I think is a huge sigh of relief. It's a huge weight off of your shoulder. So hopefully Malachi can step up and play more consistently after that. But the 2 fumbles, I mean, you get the one in the first half where Alohi Gilman makes a play, and you have Teddy Buchanan, who was all over the field for the Ravens. Shout out to Teddy Buchanan for his performance in this game. But Teddy kind of wraps up, a couple of the guys wrap up, and Alohi Gilman forces that ball out when the Ravens, they were trying to find early momentum. That was huge. And then the second fumble where you have Teddy Buchanan wrapping up again, and Marlon, and this is the most controversial thing of the night, is who forced the fumble between between Teddy Buchanan and Marlon Humphrey. I thought it was Marlon. I thought Teddy had him wrapped up, kind of had his hand in there, and then Marlon came in and kind of ripped his hand away, for the ball carrier's hand away from the ball. Some people are saying Teddy, some are saying it might have been both. It might have been both, if we're being honest. So I'm not sure. But those turnovers were the keys to the game. The Ravens defense forcing turnovers stops the opposing offense. It gives the offense gets the offense back on the field, and it stops the opposing offense. And I see AJ saying Tua turned the ball over is one of Tua's nicknames. And certainly, I mean, look, Tua only had the 1 interception. I mean, Tua, honestly, I thought played okay. It still had really weird, like that one grounding play where he just kind of rolled out and threw the ball to nowhere when he had room to run and throw. Tua had some weird plays in this game, but those fumbles, they weren't on Tua. But it's still funny to say Tua turned the ball over, because the Dolphins, they turn the ball over a lot. So there we go. And, Mike Green even got his first sack last week, and now I see SG's talking about it here. Look, Mike Green got his first sack last week. Malachi got the pick tonight. Teddy, Defensive Rookie of the Month. Shout out to Teddy for that. Draft class is coming alive. Tyler hitting kicks and, everybody stepping up, it feels like, who was out there playing. Mike Green had his second sack on that Hail Mary fail from the Dolphins. So that's what they need. And this is exactly what we saw last year from that Ravens defense, or honestly, both Ravens offense and defense, was when you're a team that has a quarterback on the deal that Lamar Jackson is on, and all the other big deals. It's not just Lamar, but, Lamar's the biggest deal. You need to have your draft class contribute immediately, right? You need to have it contribute immediately. And it's not always going to work out that way at first, but over the course of the season, as you hopefully head to the postseason, that's going to be what you want. And certainly there were some rookie growing pains and some moments this season we have seen, but I'm hoping this draft class has turned a corner, because they're going to need those guys to step up in a huge way. And yeah, prime time, I don't know what it is with this team and dropping interceptions. They need to stop it, though. they need to stop it. When Malachi was going up for that interception, I thought he was going to drop it. Roquan would have had one as well. So I just, actually, Theo's saying they only gave Mike Green half a sack on that. So who did they give the other half a sack to? Travis Jones got it, it looks like, or Brent. So yeah, and Brent Urban and David Ajabo. So those four all had half a sack. Interesting. All right. Well, Mike Green, 1.5 sacks, not 1 sacks on the day for him, 1 sack on the day. But, everybody, I think, is feeling confident right now in that organization, right? You're coming off of 2 huge wins. I mean, defensively, even though, look, Devon Achane was cooking this team, or he cooked throughout the game. Like, I'm very glad. I said this on the watch along. I'm so glad that we do not have to see Devon Achane again. We can just put that behind us and say the Ravens, they're done with them. They're done with them. See you later. So, man, I feel like there are a lot of opportunities for the Ravens, not only to continue their momentum from what we saw in this game, but to continue to improve as a whole, right? That's the big thing. Continue to improve as a whole. I mean, defensively, Roquan, 12 tackles, Teddy with 8, Marlon had 6, Nate was good. And look, Jalen Waddle too. I mean, they have some talented players on offense, but there's no Tyreek Hill. You're asking guys to step up outside of Achane and Jalen Waddle, who really haven't done that before. And so it's just, it makes for a bad time. It makes for a bad time. So I thought defensively, the Ravens really were stout when it mattered. Still some things that they can improve on. The Dolphins in this game, 5.8 yards per pass, 5.4 yards per play. The Ravens did end up stacking up Achane a lot of plays later in the game. But even still, the Dolphins did gift the Ravens some mistakes. Still a lot of bend, don't break. That's all stuff that they can improve upon to not make it be like, because look, the Dolphins missed a field goal and like they went for it on 4th down and missed. So like, am I saying this defense is perfect and ready to go and best defense? No, they're not. They have a long way to go still. But I'm very encouraged, at least, by what I saw from them in this game, because you're supposed to do this, right? 6 points. Any team will take 6 points. Any team will do it. Any team will take it. So got to give them their flowers for that. And I just think the defense looks better. They're getting the pressure. They're making sure that they're forcing the turnovers and taking the offense off the field. We mentioned the red zone stat. The Dolphins could not convert in the red zone. And then on 3rd down, they went 2 for 12. The Dolphins were terrible on 3rd down in this one. The Ravens did not let the Dolphins extend their drives for the most part, which also was a really key factor in this one. So coming up in the final part of the show, we're going to be diving into where the Ravens go from here. We'll talk about if some of these Dolphins players that the Ravens just faced could be on the team in a couple of days. So be sure to stay tuned. We have plenty coming your way on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Mazda. And Mazda, they craft cars that do more than simply move, and they craft cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players who sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. Appreciate everybody for being here with me on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. We're reacting late into the night. We just passed over midnight on the East Coast. But if you're not with us live or watching after the fact and celebrate the win, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, video form and audio form, for 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage and content. After this, we'll have the Locked On Ravens squad show. Myself, Sam Njoku, and Kaj Ismail will react to the game. But then we'll also have the Monday through Friday show. Friday show coming out 6 a.m. Eastern time. We have so much coverage and content here for you on the show. Where do the Ravens go from here? Well, let's check it out. Ravens schedule right now. They just beat the Dolphins, and they have an opportunity to really go on a run here. I mean, I'm really feeling it, especially after these 2 wins. You got the Vikings on November 9th. They're going to have a mini bye here, which is great. More time for Lamar and company to heal up, get as close to 100% as he can. Kyle Hamilton got a bit dinged up in this one. So, you're just really hoping that you can, I mean, you just really have to feel like this. If this team gets healthier, not in terms like they didn't suffer any big injuries tonight, but healthier in terms of like, the bumps and bruises of an NFL season can be a lot. And, when you have a week 7 bye, which is decently early, it's not the earliest, but it's decently early, you have to go through the remainder of the season without a break. But these mini buys give you an opportunity like that. That's a really underrated aspect to me of you're able to rest and relax a little bit, get back to work next week. But then you have Vikings, Browns, Jets is your next 3. And you have the Bengals on Thanksgiving. Then another mini bye before you take on the Steelers, which is huge because those games are always physical. Then you go and play the Bengals in Cincinnati. You got the Patriots, Packers, and the Steelers to round out your schedule. I think that with the Ravens being 3-5, hopefully you are 5-5 heading into that game against the Jets. Hopefully you're 6-5. You're above 500 entering that game against the Bengals on Thanksgiving. But how can they get there? Well, the way they could improve their odds is probably making a trade or 2. Trade talk is always fun. I love talking trades. And for me, there are a couple of players in that Miami defense that I would love to see in a Baltimore uniform in a couple of days. Bradley Chubb, come on down. Zach Sealer, come on down. Come home. Matt Judon, come on back. Jalen Phillips, all right, you two, everybody can come on. Like we saw, Bradley Chubb was that he was the one. No, well, actually, it was Chop Robinson that pushed Ronnie back into Derrick Henry's airspace. But Bradley Chubb moved Patrick. He pancaked Pat. Pancake Pat got pancaked by Bradley Chubb. So, I just think that for me, there's a lot of decisions that the Ravens have to make in terms of where they want to target guys at the deadline. But you have a real opportunity to add a real playmaker or 2 to your defense that can help continue the ascension and the growth of what we have seen over the past couple of weeks. I see SG talking about Draymond Jones, and it's not just about, other guys on Miami. I mean, if you have a target, if you're live with us, put it in the chat. If you're watching after the fact, put it in the chat, in the comments. If you're listening to us, be sure you message it to me. I'd love to talk about it. You can message it to me anyway if you're in video form too. But you're talking guys like Calais Campbell maybe, or Jermaine Johnson, or others like that. I mean, you have so many guys like Quinnen Williams on the interior. I saw that. Dexter Lawrence, like those are some of the bigger swing players, but I don't think Jalen Phillips is going to cost you all that much. Bradley Chubb has a big contract. I don't think he's going to cost you all that much. Judon would probably cost you a 7th, if anything. I mean, you have an opportunity to truly add. Oh, I see Charlie saying Kayvon Thibodeau. That's a really good one too. I like him a lot. SG asking, would the Jets shop Will McDonald? I don't think so. I'd love it. Will McDonald. I mean, if there was a Jets pass rusher to have, Will McDonald would be because again, I think for a move for Baltimore, if it's a veteran like a Zeitler on the O-line or a Calais Campbell or like a 1-year guy like a Judon, that's okay, but you're not giving up a lot of capital for those guys, right? But if you're making a big move like a Thibodeau, Johnson, Phillips, McDonald, etc., you would want that guy to stay in Baltimore for multiple seasons. Long-term option. Kind of like Roquan, right? The Ravens, they acquired Roquan on an expiring deal and, traded a 2nd for him and a 5th for him, and it didn't make sense for them to just let him walk in free agency. I mean, they could have and gotten a 3rd-round comp pick back, and you're only, downgrading around. But even still, you want those guys to stay in Baltimore long-term. But this team, if they don't make a move by the deadline, I'd be pretty disappointed. I would be. The Ravens are past sell territory at this point. There was actually became a controversial tweet. I don't know why it was controversial, but it became that way from myself here, where I said that, look, if the Ravens aren't going to play Jair Alexander, they should trade him, and they should include him in a package for a guy that they would use on the interior. Now, I don't know what the plan is for the Ravens. I don't know what the plan is for them with Jair. I mean, do they want to get him ready for January? I mean, if you're going to get him ready for January, you kind of need to have him play a little bit. So, man, I don't know. Because Jair, like, I want him to play. I want the Ravens to play him. But if they're not going to play him and just keep him on the bench, then why not move off of him for a guy that maybe a team needs corner help, the Ravens need pass rush help, and it works out kind of like the Owe for Gilman trade. Maybe that's what it is. So I'm not sure. Oh, and apparently SG saying the Saints might trade Cesar Ruiz for the right price. Wow, that'd be something. The Saints, right? I know, but it's those teams you have to target, right? It's the Jets, it's the Dolphins, it's the Saints, it's the Titans. It's those teams that aren't going anywhere. You can get these guys for really good prices, in my opinion. So, like Calais Campbell, my dream deadline for the Ravens for a while. That's Ravens realistic. Rob says it right here. Calais Campbell, one of them. Kevin Zeitler is the other one. So if you can just get those two guys, I'd be feeling good. But man, I didn't really have Bradley Chubb as a target for Baltimore until tonight, but Bradley Chubb looked good. Bradley Chubb looked good. And another one, SG Arden Key. That's one we've talked about on this show. I'm glad you brought him up too. Arden Key from Tennessee could be a nice piece as well. I like that a lot. So look, where the Ravens go from here is you take it 1 week at a time. You heal up during your mini bye. You keep your momentum. And you know what? Like the Ravens said, they worked on all that stuff during their bye. You can now scout your opponent for next week by watching their game. You can watch Minnesota and then play. And then you can go back to the drawing board because every single week is 1-0. Every single week is 1-0 for this Ravens team. That's what it needs to be. That's the mindset. Every week go 1-0. So I was really happy. I was really happy that the Ravens were able to show this. And tail of two halves, right? Because the Ravens easily, with the lack of momentum going into the second half, they could, 3 and out, or it's a field goal, and then Miami comes back in the game. They put their foot on the gas, and they did not let go for the entire second half. The entire second half. So I think for me, this deadline is coming up on Tuesday, and it gives Eric DeCosta a lot of wiggle room to operate, right? Where you don't have to worry about anybody. You have your roster. Nobody's going to get injured, right? If you want to trade a player, but you have another week under your belt here. We're now halfway through the season, by the way, regular season. We're halfway through the regular season. 9 weeks down, 9 weeks to go. And for the Ravens, the path for them is the division. And I've said this before, and this is something I thought about last week. But imagine this. This is the ultimate test scenario for the Ravens. Is there the shot to me to make the playoffs for Baltimore is winning the division. All right, you win the division, you get the 4 seed. Now the Bills, they're in a fight right now with the Patriots for their division. There's a shot that the Patriots, they win the East, and then all of a sudden the Bills are the 5 seed and they are coming to Baltimore for the wild card round. But a lot of people thought was the AFC Championship game. Potentially the AFC Championship matchup is Bills-Ravens. There's a realistic, a non-zero, more than a non-zero chance that the Ravens and Bills face off in the wild card round if the Patriots will run away with that AFC East. And if the Ravens sneak back and they take the division. In fact, I wouldn't even really call it sneaking back. I wouldn't even call it sneaking back. At this point, it is realistic. Over on FanDuel right now, let me see if I can quickly find over on FanDuel here, divisions over on FanDuel. The Ravens right now, they are minus 145 on FanDuel to win the division. Pittsburgh is plus 200, Cincy plus 650, and Cleveland plus 3,500. I think Baltimore should be favored to win. They obviously are, but I think that they should be favored to win this division based off of the Steelers schedule, the Ravens schedule, and the Ravens picking up momentum at the right time. Now, are they going to go undefeated for the rest of the season? I wouldn't count on that. There are going to be probably a couple more losses here, but there's a possibility. I'm not saying they're going to. They have a long way to go, but that has to be their mindset of not, we're going undefeated the rest of the way, but of going 1-0 every single week, like I had said. So, you don't have a lot of wiggle room for losses, but at this point in time, you need a lot to go your way, but you also need to take care of your own business. The Ravens still control their own destiny. 5 losses in the NFL, it's not enough that you need all these teams' help to win the division or, do this or do that. There is a long way to go, but there is a clear path. And I see Nike's asking, who can we possibly lose to? I look towards the end of the season. I think the Packers are going to be a really tough game for them. I'm not sure if they win or lose that one. Hopefully they'll have momentum by that point. Patriots are playing really well. Ravens and Steelers games get weird, but the Steelers, their defense is horrible. They're horrible. And I see Sean bring up the point that, they lost to the Raiders last year, the Colts 2 years ago. So, they're always kind of good for one of those weird games a year where they lose. So hopefully it doesn't happen this season. But, I would probably project them to lose 1 to 2 more games. I think that the record that they have to target is 10-7. 12-5 is ideal, but I think 10-7 is just fine. So really big win for Baltimore. That's all I have here today, though. And this is the reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. So don't go anywhere because we're going to have the Locked On Ravens squad show coming up in just a couple of minutes. So be sure you pop on over to that. Watch, listen to that as well. We'll be back here, of course, again tomorrow as well for our 6 a.m. Friday edition episode of the show, our regular scheduled programming. So be sure on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along and subscribe in audio form. Thank you for all the support, and I will see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.